My name is Ariana, and I am homeless.
Wow. Meet Ariana. As of the 23rd of July of this year, just 6 weeks ago, she was homeless. She was living in her car. She couldn't afford to get an apartment. She did have a job. She's quit the job. She's now in the hunt for an $80,000 Mercedes van, and she's apparently rolling in it. She's got donations coming in left, right and centre due to her apparent situation. And that's where this situation has led us. Ariana first uploaded to YouTube for the very first time on the 23rd of July, a mere 6 weeks ago. She now has over 70,000 subscribers, and that is just a phenomenal growth. Her first video is currently sitting on 2.2 million views, so basically it went viral, people loved it, and they have been following her homeless story ever since. Ariana purported to be homeless and living in her car, as shown by her first video here.
My name is Ariana, and I am homeless. I will be 32 this Monday, the 25th of July, and I won't be celebrating. I don't have any family or friends. I do have a full-time job, and I live in my car, and I have lived in my car for the last 7 months now. There's that. It's lonely. It's definitely lonely.
The reason she became homeless was because she was getting out of a DV situation, and she didn't know where to go or what to do. She just knew she had to get out of that situation.
The reason I moved out here was because I had to leave the relationship that I was in. I had to leave for my safety. It got so bad that my coworkers were telling me, if you don't get out of here, we're gonna see your face on the news. I was in denial about it at first. Of course, I wanted to believe that there could be change. And I believed in the best, but it progressively got worse. There was one incident where I realized that enough is enough, and I have to get out of here before it's too late.
So, as usually happens in the situation, the internet came together and they decided that she needed help. They took pity on her. She was living in her car. She was homeless, and she was in a dangerous situation. She had things like gunshots going off at night and things like that. It sounded terrifying.
I did stay with some relatives. It was a place to stay, and it lasted a few months, and things went south pretty quickly. You know, sometimes you have relatives that you really can't call family. I consider family people that love you unconditionally, and these people were not that at all. They were actually the opposite and kind of cruel.
So people were starting to get a bit suspicious. So they decided to do a little bit of digging, and they uncovered the real Ariana. And her name isn't Ariana. It is Ronnie Spur. Here's her mugshot, and here's her criminal past. As you can see, she's had one or two little run-ins with the law over the last so many years. She's had a little bit of shoplifting and a little bit of car trouble, like driving without a license and driving while suspended and things like that. Okay, nothing hugely major, but they're still against the law. They're still on her record as being criminal. But there's a huge list of it. It's not just one or two, it's huge. So this right off the bat is quite suspicious. I mean, it's quite dodgy, particularly as she's claiming to be this homeless person who's, well, she's just said that she's homeless. People have basically made up their mind about what she is and that she needs help and decided to donate to her. I think she's played on that, but had they have known the following piece of information, I think it might have taken a lot of persuading for people to donate to. So the following is from court records, from a court appearance regarding a custody battle that she had with her ex for the custody of her child. It says, the defendant had been residing with her parents until on or about 3 weeks ago, at which time she got into an altercation with her mother and threatened to physically harm her, resulting in the defendant being asked to leave the residence. So Ronnie has had an argument with her own mother and she was told to leave. According to the defendant's father, who has concerns about the defendant's care of the baby, the defendant would leave the baby with them and stay gone for days without either he or his wife knowing her whereabouts or having any way to contact her in the event of an emergency. So she would leave her child with her parents, just bugger off, not tell them where she's going, and not have any contact available, so they didn't know how to contact her. Just leave. Basically, you know the types, right? And then it goes on to say, after she left her parents' home, it says, since leaving her parents' residence, the defendant has taken up a residence with a person to whom she is not married, who appears from public records to be an unsavoury character, for he has been convicted of several offences, etc., etc. So basically, not a good environment to bring a child into. It is the plaintiff's impression now that the defendant takes the baby to work with her, which is not a proper nurturing environment for the baby. So her ex is claiming that she is taking the child to work with her as well. It really does not sound like a very good upbringing for this child. And then one of the utmost damning statements came out in the custody battle, and it was by Ronnie's own father. He says, I, Ronald Spur, aged 74, father of Ronnie Spur, aged 23, do hereby state under oath as follows. I have concerns as to the care of my grandson. Ronnie Spur is the granddaughter whom I adopted at age 2. Ronnie has always lived with my wife, her adopted mother, Anne Spur, and I since then. I love my daughter very much and know that she loves her baby and means well, but she is not a very responsible person when it comes to the baby's care. After the baby was born, Ronnie, on at least 3 occasions, in my opinion, acted irresponsibly regarding the care of the baby. Recently, Ronnie and her mother, my wife, had an argument, and Ronnie cursed and threatened my wife. I believe the threat was that she would slap her effing face. I was present when this happened. This scared my wife, and Ronnie was asked to leave our home, and we changed the locks to our home. Ronnie, on a few days later, came in through the garage by using the garage door opener out of my truck, which she knew the combination to. She left again when requested. I know that this will be presented in a custody case and swear that the statements are true and correct, even though it distresses me to make them. So the outcome of the custody battle was this. Ronnie had visitation ordered for 4 hours per week, just 4 hours, supervised. That's all she was allowed. She wasn't trusted. On February 15th, 2014, the following report was received by the hotline. AV is 4 months old. The AO is unknown, lives with his mother, Ronnie Spur. Blank was brought into Conway Regional Hospital emergency room. The mother stated that she thought that he was having an allergic reaction to something. His right eye was swollen and the right side of his head. The doctor did a CAT scan to check and discovered a skull fracture and a small blood bleed. The mother stated that he fell 10 days ago off a mattress on the floor. The child was a little fussy after the incident, but nothing else had occurred until today. The child is currently headed to Children's Hospital in Little Rock by ambulance. FSW Latonia Griffin was informed by FSW Lisa Smith that a call had been made to the child abuse hotline in regards to an infant with a skull fracture that was hospitalized at Arkansas Children's Hospital on Saturday, February 15th. It was at that time that FSW Smith contacted the hospital and spoke with the social worker on staff, Tamara Belton. From that conversation, it was decided the hospital would contact DCFS once the child would be ready for release from hospital. FSW Griffin was notified at 5:40 p.m. by telephone that he was medically ready to be discharged from the hospital. The call came from Tamara, the social worker at Children's Hospital. FSW Griffin arrived at the hospital approximately 8:30 p.m. She was met in the lobby by the social worker. The social worker disclosed that the mother was not aware at this time that DCFS would be taking custody of the child. FSW Griffin was taken to the 4th floor and placed in a room to await the parent. So basically they were taking the child away from Ronnie because they suspected some form of abuse whilst they investigated it. FSW Griffin met Ronnie Spur, the mother. Ronnie was brought into the room by the social worker. At this time, FSW Griffin explained to Ronnie that the agency would be taking a 72-hour hold on the baby due to the injuries not matching the mother's explanation of how the injury was obtained. Ronnie began to cry, stating that she forgot to tell the doctor that he had been on a thin blanket at her grandparents' house while they watched him last week, and maybe he thrashed his head on the wooden floors. The social worker stated that she did not believe it was possible for the baby to give this injury to himself. So Tamara then called the child abuse doctor who examined the baby and put the doctor on speakerphone. Tamara asked the doctor if he could have caused this injury by what Ronnie was telling them. The doctor stated that the location of the skull fracture is on the right side, not consistent with a back and forth thrashing of a child laying on the floor. The doctor also stated that with the size and significance of the injury, it is not possible that he could have caused this injury to himself. Basically, we have a situation here where Ronnie, or Ariana, has had the child taken away from her on suspicion of abuse of her own child, and this is the part of the story that she is completely left out. I mean, it's obviously completely up to her what she tells the internet. She doesn't have to tell anybody any of this, but what is quite deceptive is not disclosing her very shady past, very destructive past, and accepting a lot of donations from the kind and well-meaning public. So when Ronnie told us that family are not really family and they're not always all they're cracked up to be, basically, she wasn't talking about the people that she was living with for a couple of months. She was talking about her mother and her father and her ex, this whole situation. It was a veiled comment about this.
I consider family people that love you unconditionally, and these people were not that at all. They were actually the opposite and kind of cruel.
Just remember, when people say to you one thing on the internet, it's not always true. In this instance, she said she was homeless. She said she was living in a car. It was kind of up to the general public to not jump straight in there and say, well, this is a bad situation, we need to get her out of it. Just think before you act. Except for in my donations, I accept donations down below. Look at the links and everything below there. That would be great. Thank you so much. Take care, everybody, and I'll see you again shortly for another video. Bye bye.